Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Papagayo, my jungle core island. Today I have collected and gathered many items to create a toxic poison jungle on my island. I could not have done this before this update. We're going to use a lot of the glowing moss items, we're going to use a lot of the vine items, and especially this Titan Arum, which is the crux of this entire poison jungle design. This is my first build with the 2.0 items and I'm really excited for it. The area that we're working with is the middle chunk of my island. It's kind of like a little half circle shape. So it's all of this between here. So starting with this bridge that goes to Alfonso's house, coming down along, we got a incline to go up to the volcano, and then we also have this other half of it that leads off to Blathers' tent and Gonzo's house. So that is what we're doing today. I'm gonna go off camera and speed build it. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to the build portion of this video. Not a fun story, but here's what happened. I already recorded this voiceover and it took me about an hour. And all of that is gone. I went to go log back in and there is no voiceover. Where is she? Who is she? My computer doesn't know. So here we go again. I love the way this build turns out in the end. Definitely stay tuned for the final walkthrough because these new 2.0 items just made this possible. I was actually thinking about doing this build a few weeks back and so inspired to do this toxic jungle. This is partially inspired by Nausicaa Valley of the Wind by Studio Ghibli, which is one of my favorite Studio Ghibli movies. If you haven't seen it already, it is about a future in which humans have destroyed the planet and nature has kind of taken it back and bugs have grown to insane proportions and a large part of the planet is just completely toxic for humans to inhabit. And so they're, of course, a lot smaller population and kind of set in pockets interspersed with like a giant jungle that is completely toxic and has all these giant bugs in it. And that's kind of what I was thinking for this build particularly. So I actually had somebody comment on my videos not that long ago that said they were doing a Nausicaa Valley of the Wind inspired island, and I thought that that was so cool, and they're probably having a field day with these new items because they are so oversized. For example, the giant vines, that glowing moss pond that I add into this build as well, the cave. There's a lot of these like oversized items that I think are amazing. So once I get the path kind of laid out and a couple of the little areas planned a bit more, I start in with adding the largest of the find that the islands are crashing more regularly, which is a little bit frustrating. But really, if you have enough time, which is what I always suggest, is to not go to treasure islands thinking, oh, I don't have that much time. Go when you have a good amount of time, when you're feeling relaxed and you're just ready to spend some time. Maybe not getting all the items on the first time that you go to the island, but having to go back a couple times and you will definitely grab a bunch of awesome stuff. If that's the only thing I have to pay to go to a treasure island is just my time, then I think it's more than worth it. Especially with all of these new items, because it can take a long time to build up your catalog. And if you were just relying on Nook's Cranny or even trading on Nookazon, that is very time consuming. I find personally trading on Nookazon to take a lot of time. So I just enjoy being able to go to a treasure island, get it all done in one shot, and then I'm done with it. Plus, they're really fun now because there's so many new items on these islands that it's like you're like a kid in a candy store with all of these new items. I cannot wait to start my next island. As I was saying on my Monday video, I'm almost finished with Okanda and then we can move on to another theme. And to be honest, as I was working on Papagayo, I realized I didn't really start Papagayo that much later after I started Okanda. So it is actually almost done as well. I think I'm getting to that like 70% done point with Papagayo after this build is done because such a large portion is completed through the middle there. But this is kind of the tricky point of an island. I find like the 60 to 70% completed point is when it starts to get a little bit difficult because you start to have most of your island completed. You have to do the more small builds, those connecting areas, and really tie it together and get cohesive, and you have to start really focusing on the little details. For me, my problem with the islands is I tend to like ignore the really tiny spaces between builds. Like I'll leave it a little bit more empty, or I won't exactly fill it out with trees, and so that's most of my completion process, is just going through and really picking up on those little details. I'm super excited though with how Papagayo is going. One thing I will say is that when I saw all of these new update items, I immediately thought more of Okanda, my Canada Core island, when I saw them, because there's a lot of like really city, town focused and farm focused kind of items. However, when I went back and was really looking at them, and the second that I started to see all of these vine DIYs, and especially the decayed trees and the glowing moss items, I was like, okay, there is tons here for Jungle Core. And I think this build is a perfect demonstration of how much there is for every single theme just packed into this update. It's incredible. I am actually obsessed with all of these new items. And I was a little bit nervous. Honestly, I was a little bit nervous to get started with the 2.0 items and doing an actual build. But when I saw those giant flowers, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and it just came together so well. Let me know if you have done any builds with the 2.0 items yet, and what did you make? What item was it? If there was a specific item or a group of items that really inspired you to do a build on your own island, I would love to know. I would love to hear about it, because there are so many new items. There's over 9,000 new items if you include all the variations of the items as well that have been added to this game. So that is just an absolute incredible amount. And it's a lot to process, so let us know, let everybody know like what your favorite items are. Maybe we can get some inspiration for different themes. Let us know what your theme is and how you're incorporating the new items. That'd be amazing. I am a huge fan of all of the glowing moss items, and when you actually press A on them, they give off like a little glow powder, which is so adorable. I wish you could set actual items on top of the glowing moss stool, but unfortunately that's not possible. I decided to go with a purple theme throughout this toxic jungle. I think the colors really work well against all of the greens. And I pretty much poached every purple flower that was like easy to replace on my island. So if they were kind of on the outskirts of a build, I would just take their purple flower away from them. And I just threw it into this build. It looks great. I wish that I had had more purple roses, because I find that the color is really nice and a little bit more red than the other purple flowers. But I like kind of the different purples. I would like to color block around my island a little bit more as well. Maybe have like one area that's just yellow or one area that's just really blue kind of thing. I did sort of do that with Amelia's area, but that's something that I did a lot on my first island and it turned out really good. The general theme with this build was just trying to make it feel very overgrown. So I'm adding in a lot of texture onto the foreground, like right against that cliff, and filling in the rest of what you can't see with glowing moss and weeds and bushes and that kind of thing. So the decayed trees were an excellent addition with the 2.0, especially because we had those ones before that had pumpkins hanging all over them, but I'm not a big Halloween person, so that never really struck me as something interesting. So I really like that we have them without anything hanging off of them, and they just add a little bit more depth. And a lot of these larger items, I feel like I'm going to be using them quite often. Like, I need to order at least 10 more of these flowers and just scatter them everywhere, because they really give that like larger than life impression, especially the giant vine item. They take 25 vines to craft. So I was only able to get maybe 3 or 4 of them into this build, but even that is like, they're so big and imposing that they really are striking, which is awesome. This little spot as you're coming down the stairs from the volcano area gave me a little bit of trouble because it was very close initially to that pond. And as you can see, the pond takes up the exact 3 squares, and so it kind of pushes you a little bit as you're walking. And I end up actually extending or removing some of the water terraforming on that side, just so that I can push the pond over so that it's not interfering with the walkway. But right now it's in an annoying spot, and I'm just trying to add in as much as I can to the area right behind the cliff. Now that we have our new camera angle where you can kind of pan and see on an angle into places, you have to decorate in areas of the island that you never had to decorate or even think about before. So this little strip, for example, right behind where I'm going to be adding a little cave moment, is an area that I would never have really put that much thought into. I maybe would have put some bushes or flowers back there, but nobody would even be able to see back there. But now, since we can tilt the camera when it's up high, that is an area that you can see. And so I'm having to go back, and I will have to go back on Okanda as well and twist the camera to see if those areas are visible and adjust that accordingly. And I think my go-to with this island specifically is going to be the glowing moss and the glowing moss items, because they are like weeds but more beautiful. And also I've noticed that they don't change. On my island, they don't grow or adjust themselves. They just stay exactly the way that you planted them, which is different from weeds, and I really appreciate. It really works well on this island specifically. I don't know if it would work for all themes, but definitely for things like fairy core or something a little bit more like mystical feeling, I think it would work great. We're just going to fast track a couple of items here. I'm just going to be adding in some bug models, a few more flowers that I've poached from various places. If I can make a suggestion, if you're kind of nervous to start building with the 2.0 update, I would say to just kind of wait and see what items start to really jump out at you. I know it's tempting. It's really difficult too, because on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, you see all these people building these amazing things with the new items like castles and stuff. And I've kind of stayed a little bit away from social media during this time so that I can get my own first impressions of how I use these items and what they're looking like, and the element of discovery. Like this, I discovered that I was able to tap on it and it did this glowing animation, and the skeleton, I tapped on it and it moves slightly, so that's pretty cool. Just little things like that have been really cool exploring this new update. I mean, even if you look at social media, there's still so much more that can be done with these items that, we're all just here to inspire each other, and us all collectively as a community are going to get so good at designing and decorating with these new items. But I feel like there is like a growing pains time, especially for me. Like, these new items are a little bit clunky, they feel a little bit awkward. It's just like at the beginning of the game when everybody was just doing cottagecore. Not that that's a bad theme, it's adorable, and there are so many items in this game that work with that, but it was pretty much just the default because we were all trying to figure out how these islands were going to come together and what we could do with them. So here's to the future and figuring out what to do with 2.0. Oh, but what I was going to say is that if you're having a difficult time getting used to the new 2.0 update items and you don't know exactly what build you should do first, I would say that going for a more natural vibe is going to help you. This area was still, of course, I had included a lot of items that I would normally include in builds, like flowers and trees and bushes and that kind of thing. And then also just adding to it all of these new items and getting a chance to like really play around with them and have fun with them was really, really cool. Not sure if I really articulated that perfectly, but what I was trying to say is the more natural areas tend to incorporate items that we already had before 2.0, so you'll be able to intersperse the new items together with the natural items that you're already comfortable with using potentially. And so that was kind of what I was trying to say with that. And we went forward 3 days. So I have some 3-day-old trees that I'm going to stunt, and this is the little area of water terraforming that I adjusted slightly. I might even go back and change this. Like I was saying, we're going through some growing pains. I'm going through some growing pains with these new items, and it's going to take some getting used to. So I think even with the builds that I'm doing now, I'm going to have to go back and adjust them slightly once I get more comfortable using the new items. And that's totally fine. And stunting some trees, and then one final tree that I wanted to add right over here to add a little bit more foresty depth. However, it is too close to the cliff and it doesn't end up growing, but I did just go adjust the path around it, and it's time to go forward and get the final shots and my final thoughts on this build. Look at this, coming down into the toxic poison jungle. Oh my gosh, it looks so cool. This was the vibe that I wanted. Yes, and you come across this mysterious pond. Oh, maybe I'll take a drink. Oh, but I can see also that one of my fellows has taken a drink and didn't end up so well. So we'll just keep on going through this spooky jungle. And we're at Alfonso's house. I can also go up to the volcano. This feels so good to have this area completed now. Can you put things on top of this boulder? You can! Okay, what? A mushroom? Yes! A mushroom growing out. Oh my gosh. I love that. Okay. Anyways, continuing along, we have some more decayed trees and that kind of thing, and we come to the giant flower portion of this area, and this tree did not grow. That's a bummer. I will most likely actually adjust this cliff because I really do want just another tree there to make it feel even more like dense in here. I will try that. That's okay for today though. And then it leads you back over here where there's a cool cave back there. And then we're up by Amelia's house and back into the shopping district again. So still, I think, gonna be very functional and walkable. I might actually grab another one of these plants and put it somewhere over here or something to make it really like that's what it's about in this area. And once I get more trees up in this foreground cliff area as well, it's gonna feel even more dense. But right now I'm super happy with how this came out. I love it. Thank you so much everybody for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye everybody.